Consumer Downtown Association. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. Now, Jafet, could you tell us more about the Consumer Downtown Association? What is your mandate?
Thank you very much. First of all, Consumer Downtown Association is one of the consumer protection board in the country. And what we do is to promote the interests of consumers in the country.
Yes.
We stand in to bridge the gap between the consumers and the government.
Yes.
You know, to bring a neutral habitat between service providers, the consumers, and also the government side.
All right.
Yeah, so what we do, we draw our mandate from Article 46 of the Constitution of Kenya. Also, we operate under the Consumer Protection Act 2012, which is a creation from Article 46 of the Constitution of Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about consumers, I mean, there is so much consuming that this country does. Could you tell us about what specifically you look into, or is it anything and everything that Kenyans consume?
Yes, basically, consumer protection is very wide. And we as a consumer body, we are responsible to ensure consumers of this country are treated fairly,
right,
and that their rights are upheld at any point of engagement, whether through transactions that they go into or through any kind of engagement or contracts that they engage into. There are specific consumer rights that Kenyan consumers need to know. As a consumer, anybody who consumes a service or information or food, you are a consumer.
Okay.
And you have rights,
yes,
you know, right to safety,
absolutely,
right to health, environment. You have a right to quality, right to choice, you know. You have a right also to information, right to be educated or to be informed.
Okay.
So consumers are, you know, in different categories. Yeah.
Okay. And I'd like to get into those rights in a bit. But then first of all, I'd like you, right now we talk about the coronavirus a lot, and it's all about how the business side of things, how those who are delivering to the consumer have been affected. What would you say has been the effect of the pandemic on consumers in Kenya? What have you experienced in the past, let's say, a little over 1.5 years?
Yeah, this is very, very important question. Yeah, because a lot of consumers have been affected negatively by the ongoing pandemic in the country. Majority of the consumers are currently struggling to make a living. And they can merely afford 2 meals a day because of the current stalemate that we experience in the country. There's a lot of layoffs. Several companies have actually laid a lot of people. You know, people are not able to get stable incomes. And again, looking at a number of consumers are also not able to, you know, to get you know, income as opposed to, you know, to be able to feed their families. And we're also seeing government side are trying to, you know, increase taxes on almost all goods or services.
Yes.
And this is affecting many Kenyans today. And we've seen the cost of living extremely rising. And this is very, very important that we need to have this conversation taken to another level that will influence and make, you know, the life cost of living to, you know, to be moderated downwards.
Okay, but then we're living in circumstances that are not usual. So when you talk about taking the conversation to the next level, what would that be, given all the things that we are experiencing are not necessarily man-made? They, one would say they are beyond even those who are providing services and products to consumers. Well,
in as much as we are undergoing this, I think it is the responsibility of the government to ensure we come up with the remedies, you know, solutions that will provide adequate, you know, affordable cost of living. Some of these could be subsidy programs that will, you know, bring down things like, you know, maize flour, cost of maize flour down. Looking at, you know, we are as a country, we consume close to, you know, 3 million bags of 90 kg a month. And looking at the statistics, the other day we saw in the cross borders, Tanzania and Uganda, those goods that was that were stopped at the border. Millers were complaining that, government has refused to release this, and now there's going to be scarcity, and the prices are likely to shoot. But then, after the two presidents met here in Nairobi, we saw that a majority of those grains were released into the country, and that were expected to actually feed into the gap that was already there. So we expected the prices to go down, but instead we've seen the prices of maize flour coming, even going up to by 9 shillings up. This is something that we need to see how it can be contained. At the same time, the value of money has become too small. Yeah.
Okay.
Consumers, they get money, but it cannot afford. It cannot afford them, to meet their daily needs. So this is something that we need to look into. The government need to come up with proper remedies, what I'll call the subsidy program. If we can bring up we can bring more grains into the country to be able to neutralize the ones that are already in the market, or to bring down the cost of importation, because I know there are a lot of products that have been zero rated, including maize.
Okay.
Maize importation and exportation, and those ones produced locally are zero rated. So there's no point of seeing price of grains going up when we have enough quantities in the country.
Absolutely.
The other thing would be to remove tax on common commodities. We've seen the government continuing to impose high tax on fuel, and fuel dictates almost every part of the living, every part of the sector. When fuel prices go up, expect the cost of production also to go up. This is for companies. This is for the cost of transport. We are also talking about the cost of normal things like food, for them to be moved from one point to the other. So we expect, if the government can actually reconsider reducing costs on fuel, or tax on fuel, this will help a majority of consumers in the country.
Absolutely, and we do know that when fuel prices go up, it trickles down to food prices, and you have all these middlemen that have to be paid off, and it makes everything, virtually everything in the country be a bit more costly. Now, when you talk about this, the projections from the upcoming budget indicate that Kenyans will have to, tighten their belts even further as we look into the new financial years. What would you say to the justification that we have taken loans and therefore we have to pay for them? There's a pandemic and therefore we have to, deal with the economic times, not just locally and globally, and therefore these high prices of commodities are justified and these high taxes are justified. What would you say about that?
Well, we understand that we are in a growing economy. And again, Kenya is one of the, what I would say, the powerhouse,
yes,
the economic powerhouse for East Africa region, because the rate at which the country is growing, is encouraging. We're also seeing the GDP continues to grow. But then the question is, when our GDP continues or it grows by even a digit, this is not reflected in the life of the common mwananchi.
Sure.
So that means there's a problem somewhere. Can we be able to address the gap that is existing between the common mwananchi and the government, or
yes,
rather the people at first class? The loans that we've taken, I think when we take a loan, we must be able to define how we are going to repay that. But the situation that we've seen in the current or in the recent past is that all these are rolled back to the consumer, either through taxes or through imposing, some kind of, increasing fees for almost every commodity that is commonly used by people. So I think the government, it still rolls back on the government. When we look at Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya, it talks about the social and economic rights. It is the sole mandate, and the government is obligated to ensure that the people are free from hunger and they are able to get a substantive food. food on the right quantities.
Okay.
Also, they have right to water, clean water. They also have right to health, access to health.
Okay.
And other things like electricity. We've seen cost of utilities going up, and they continue to go up. When the cost of utilities go up, those are the things that brings a huge trajectory in terms of the cost of living.
Yes.
And so we must be able to, address this productively and pronouncedly. And I'd actually advise members of parliament that when the budget, this year's budget, come to parliament, they must
shoot it down.
Either shoot it down or balance it. They must come out strongly to defend the common wananchi, the common voters who took them to the assembly. Okay. Because the cost of living is becoming unbearable.
All
the
right.
common man. The burden is becoming too huge, and the load is so huge for the consumer.
All right. Now, far from that, you've talked about availability of food and products that the common wananchi needs. You've talked about subsidy programs that are needed, and this doesn't have to be money. It could take the form of grain and these things that Kenyans need to keep going to survive, because they need to take at least 3 meals a day and what have you. But at the same time, there's the small element, not so small element, of quality versus availability. In 2009-2020, we had a lot of talk of mercury in our sugars, and then at the same time later on we had talk of aflatoxin in maize. Where does your association come in, and have you been keeping a close eye on these situations, because these are products that Kenyans use every day? Do you think things have gotten better, and what can government do to keep a better handle on the quality of the things that we consume with our families?
I think we need to increase the checkpoints. Quality issues are very, very sensitive, and because it's a provision of the law that you can only supply quality, or rather quality food or products to the market.
Yeah.
If you look at yesterday, there was a conversation around some manufacturing companies manufacturing bread, that were actually supplying bread in the market.
Yes.
Bread that is either substandard, is maybe the expiry date is not very specific.
Yes.
Or rather the weighing is not accurate. The ingredients used are not reconciling. So these are some of the issues that we're asking consumers to report to us, so that we're able to escalate them to relevant authorities to be able to address them conclusively. Looking at what was happening yesterday, the Competition Authority being the body responsible for market regulation, particularly on the matters of qualities and fair market practices. We have been working very closely with them in trying to make consumers only get access to right quality goods. But again, the other mandate also rests with KEBS, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, to ensure that their quality mark is only branded on products that have clearly passed through the test within their laboratories. At the same time, when you talk about agricultural produce, all these ones are expected to be tested at KEFIS. And KEFIS should actually come strongly to ensure that whether it is meat, whether it is grains that are coming into the country, they should have checkpoints at the entry point, so that we don't allow goods that are aflatoxin contaminated to reach our market. Right. So that when we stop them at the border point, we will be saving the country, because once they come here, there are people who want to take advantage of the quick money and actually sell them through black market to consumers, and they'll still land on your table. All right. Yeah. So the other day we also saw some supermarkets also trying to distribute expired food to people, as a way of donation. We do want to see such like things, and it's good that they were actually stopped, and some of them were actually apprehended. Right. So let us be sensitive as consumers when you look at products that have been branded. And this is something that we've said many times. All the branded products, check the product, check the expiry date before you buy any particular product, be it meat, be it milk, be it diapers, whatever product it is. Ensure you check the validity of that product before you buy, because the expiry date has to be pronouncedly written, that anybody can read. At the same time, you have to indicate the manufacture date, so that somebody can be able to check. If the product is expiring tomorrow, then the consumer should not even buy that product. But again, the authority yesterday was saying, the competition authority on this matter, was saying that we need not to make it expiry date, but we can substitute it to be best sell at.
Sell by date.
All sell by this.
That is true. Now, when I do believe it's the same body that put up certain stipulations, or actually it was the government that put up certain stipulations when it came to importing goods from outside the country, and this was much to the chagrin of local business people, some who actually had to close down their businesses. This is at least 2 years ago, because they couldn't keep up with those standards. The things that they had been importing into the country were not of good standards, and at the same time the government was trying to ramp up local manufacturing. How far has this gone, and do you agree with that move? Because at the same time it costs local business people. For example, the conversation that comes with Mtumba traders, when you shut down that sort of trade, they actually are people who are not going to make a living. But at the same time, not everyone can go into the local manufacturing business. So, but at the same time, it's a question of quality. Where do you stand on this, and what is your reaction to that situation?
I think quality issues are, as we said, are very, very key. And majority of Kenyans, in as much as we are trying to make life more affordable and more practical to many Kenyans, we must also ensure that quality standards are maintained.
Yes, but it's the same Kenyans who depend on these cheap imports to make a living.
Yes. But then, you see, the issue of cheap imports. Cheap imports, they have to also to be, they pass through clearances at the border entry points. So there are also issues of KRA, getting involved, making those clearances, taking their custom duty, taxes, and all that. But then, there are very specific prescriptions that are defined to be met. We call them the threshold standards that have to be met by any product that is getting into the country. So when we bring products that are either cheap, like we've seen the CA, the Communications Authority, at some point were denying networks to some devices, mobile devices that were brought into the country because they were cheap, they were affordable, yes, but they were fake. So some of this we need to be very sensitive, and what we always advise consumers is that don't go for cheap, but go for quality, because cheap is also expensive. The moment you buy a product which is very cheap, the next day you'll use more money, or more resources, trying to address the challenge that has been brought in by that cheap product. So either you'll be arrested and you'll lose all of it, or maybe it will cause some diverse effects to your health that will land you into the hospital, and you'll end up using more resources also to recuperate. So it is important that we maintain the quality standards that are recommended in the market. And also we follow the law. We be law-abiding citizens by paying tax.
That is true, but then what do you say about those who are rendered jobless or without a source of income as a result of moving away from these cheap imports, or as a result of the government pushing them to move away from these cheap imports? What can the government do to cushion these people?
Basically, people who are getting into cheap products, or products that are how to say, products that are getting into the country either through smuggling or substandard or counterfeiting products, it is not accepted. Because, first of all, you are risking lives of Kenyans by those products. Themselves, they are also engaging in illegal business. At the same time, such products will also, fund tax evasion, which is a very, very serious obligation of any responsible Kenyan.
Right.
And at the same time, we'll be working against our economy. You know, everybody want to see a positive trajectory in terms of economic growth. And because when the GDP is growing, everybody would want to see a positive, growth from their end. So I think what the government should do is probably to create job opportunities for such people, or rather establish companies or manufacturing companies within the country that can generate those products at the required standards, so that these people can be able to obtain those products at that level using their small capitals of that money. But there's something that I would want also to mention on the issue of fuel. In as much as the government continues to increase the fuel prices in the country, one would wonder why a landlocked country like Uganda, who rely on us to be able to get their fuel, their fuel is very cheap compared to Kenya.
Well, they don't have the taxes that ramp up our prices.
Yes, but they may not have that tax. Even in Tanzania, it is almost 9 shillings cheaper when you are in Tanzania for petrol, a liter of petrol. Yeah. I'm looking at somebody at Eluak, far away in northern part of Kenya, paying up to 137 shillings per liter. This is somebody who is living, in a very remote area where there are challenges with network connectivity, challenges with electricity, challenges with road access, challenges with communication. And you're charging them 137 per liter. These people, it is a complete punishment to Kenyans. So we must actually address this issue of fuel regulation when we are sober enough. And actually, there is need for Parliament also to relook into the Energy and Petroleum Act, to be able to see a lasting solution in terms of fuel regulation. The one that they announce every 30 days is extremely. It has proved that they have no,
getting out of hand.
Yeah, they have no intention to serve the consumer.
Okay, and I'll draw you back to the joblessness there's the joblessness that we're talking about, but then there's the situation with the coronavirus that has rendered many people jobless. Do you think the government is doing enough, if anything, to help, build these people back up, help them find sources of revenue?
I think now that we are in the verge of economic recovery, there's need to come up with proper strategies in terms of economic recovery and promoting resilience. Of course, the government has not been doing so much, and a lot of Kenyans have really, really complained that the government is not doing so much in terms of trying to assist them, recover from the COVID-19 impact. There is need that we, as the economy continues to open up, there is need that we come up with proper working remedies. And this can only be done through a concerted effort between private sector and the government. There's need for a sit-down, either creation of a kind of a task force to come up with clear remedies that will address the real issues of consumers. And in that roundtable, there's need also for consumer representation also to be able to address clearly the matters or issues that are affecting consumers currently. Because we have people who have been sitting in this government platforms, and they are not addressing the issues of consumers. Actually, they are trying to please their stomachs. They are trying to address issues that are short term, that are not actually going to address, is more of PR than addressing the real issues that affect common Kenyans. So it's time that the government, through maybe the State House or rather the President, can actually create now a task force that would work into developing proper economic recovery so that we maintain our powers, our economic powers of the East African region, and also to build a strong resilience that will promote, growth in the country.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, lastly, as the Executive Director of the Consumer Downtown Association, would you point to a situation that you have been involved in that has actually enabled or brought about change in terms of the kind of goods that consumers get? Have you been involved in terms of advocacy, protests, lobbying, even legal action? Could you point to a case that you would say was good in terms of the result that you got out of it?
Well, it's important that we continue the conversation on the results that we are currently facing. The situation currently is we are in a point that we need to promote conversations that will trigger positive outcome to our economy. And we as consumer organization, what we do is to ensure we support the government where possible,
right,
to be able to promote positive change, positive growth, and also to be able to promote economic resilience, programs that will work towards promoting the welfare of consumer.
Right. And my question was, have you been involved, or do you have a program that you think has positively impacted the situation in terms of the quality of what consumers are getting, that has brought change to society?
Yeah, sure. I would want to mention just a few. We've worked very closely with the Competition Authority of Kenya to promote the full disclosureship. Full disclosureship on any mobile transactions, whether it mobile transaction or banking transactions, any transaction that is involving loan or rather any credit facility.
Right.
There used not to be that full disclosureship. And access to information is enshrined in the Constitution, Article 35 of the Constitution of Kenya. Also, when you read it together with the Section 36 of the Consumer Protection Act, it talks about the issues of disclosure, full disclosureship of the information. So we have worked with the Competition Authority to ensure that today when you send money via M-Pesa, you would see that you've used this, you've sent this. This is what you've sent, this is the transaction cost. That disclosureship was not there before. At the same time, when you go to a bank to get money, any credit facility, you'll be told that this is the amount you are applying for, this is the principal amount, this is the application fee, this is the insurance fee, they have to show that breakdown. That is the disclosureship we're talking about.
Okay.
At the same time, we've also, together with other consumer organizations, under the umbrella Consumer Voice of Kenya, we have come up with a program on food safety.
All right.
Where we've done a research on food safety. We've established a report, and the report has now been shared with the relevant ministries for articulation, or rather for implementation on specific areas that we identified that needs to be addressed. So that we are doing. At the same time, we are currently working together with the multi-stakeholder agency in terms of on food safety. That is led by the Ministry of Health in organizing the World Food Safety Day, usually marked